Welcome to Brew Bandit Television, and Mitch, Travis, and Kevin sitting here at the table, the round table of brewing here this afternoon. And basically, Brew Bandits TV, it's about brewing what you can buy. You stand in the store and you look at those glass coolers and you think to yourself, hey, somebody else is making a heck of a lot of money and having a lot of fun doing this.
Right.
Why can't I do this at home? Why can't I make these beers at home? And so that's the premise of our television. You know, whether you're drinking an Oktoberfest or a Kolsch or an Irish Red or a Pale Ale, we're going to go in there, we're going to take beers right off the shelf, we're going to set them on a table, and we're going to figure out how we can make them. Is that the show?
That is the show.
I feel like that's the show.
That is the show.
I don't think there's a lot more to it.
No, that's it. And
So pretty much you can take your favorite beer and make it in your kitchen or wherever you can boil water.
It's a show about nothing.
Correct.
Except beer.
Except beer. Okay, and I guess we're going to get right down to beer brewing. And the first thing that we're going to do is get the brew pot on there, get a couple of gallons in there, and just get it up to a boil. It's as simple as that. If you can boil water, you can make beer.
212 degrees, right?
212?
You're the fact man.
212 degrees. Boiling.
Again, a rolling boil will work. Look for the little bubbles. It'll be all set. You don't have to worry about it too much. But we can get the grains started because we're going to seep some grains in there, which will give it some of the flavor and a nice, good red color. Again, courtesy of the homebrew supply in Winooski. I don't really know anywhere else you can get this stuff here in northern Vermont, but...
What is the bill here for this one? Let's talk about that.
Oh,
real
sure.
quick.
Sure.
We've got 12 ounces of the Karamunic 3 malt. We've got 12 ounces of rye malt. And we've got 2.1 ounces of chocolate rye malt that we're going to hear. So that's kind of what we've got all ground up here. And basically your homebrew supply store, when you go there, you got a recipe like this. You walk in. This is what you did, right? You walk in.
Yeah, it's that simple. You don't even have to come in if you just have an idea of what you like to drink. It has it all in binders by the type, like an ale or a stout or whatever, area of like a U.S. Pale Ale or whatever. And you'll get, pretty much you just take a print off. You can also contribute. If you come up with your own recipe and you like something, you can give it to them and they'll have it on file. And you can just go in and that's everything you need. And they've got it all in stock.
And they grind the grain for you and they weigh it all out. I mean, really, the homebrew supply stores these days have made it very simple for the average brewer. It doesn't. Again, it's not rocket science. That's the whole idea of this program here. It's not rocket science.
No,
go in there, get some grains,
simple.
throw them in a sock, and drop them in
a cheesecloth.
A grain bag that you can get at the supply.
Yeah. So make sure you buy a grain bag big enough to hold all your grain. They stretch right out like that. So now what we're doing is Kevin here is tying off the bag, and what you notice he's done is he's tied this grain bag off with a little bit of room in there, so that when this drops into the pot and it hits all the water, the grains expand. You're going to be able to, instead of just making a cake where it, I think we probably have all done this, where you make it real tight, you drop it in there, and the water doesn't get through and get around and get to all the grains. You really want to get that steep going on.
You want to get all the stuff off the grains, all the...
Yeah, I've dumped a grain bag out before, and like the middle ones were still dry because I didn't do it right. So,
all right, there you go. And then once you've got your little cake of grains all ready to go, right here, and at this point, yeah, looks like everything's hot enough, and you just want to get that right in there. Turn off the heat. That's very important, and you're just going to let it seep. Get in there. Even sometimes it's good just take a spoon, give it a little bit of a twirl, just get it mixed up a little bit. Also, you want to have a pan on hand, because when this is done, you're going to want to, first of all, this smells amazing. This is the best part of brewing for the most part. Get a little pan, because when it's done, you want to try and catch some of the drippings. It's still going to be leaking water out with all like the nice flavor and color, and you want to add that back to when you start to do it in a boil again. And again, that's what you have to do. And so this is going to take about, you can let it seep. The longer you let it seep, sometimes the darker the color. You can usually follow it by the schedule, but if go with the feel, you're not going to mess it up. It's just going to take this probably about a half hour.
All right, Brew Bandit Television here, and what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick couple of moments here to introduce the Bandits and talk a little bit about brewing. And we're going to start with Travis over here, Bandit number 1. So everybody does it differently, and that's kind of the whole principle of this television show, and that's what we're trying to get across here. And let's just talk a little bit about how we got into brewing and how we got started. Yeah. It's 3 different stories, 3 different people. Everyone's coming from a different angle. Exactly. So why don't you kick us off a little bit?
In terms of brewing, my wife got me the best Christmas gift ever about 5 years ago. Just a random basic brew kit from off of an online catalog. I think it cost like $50 or something tops, and I didn't know if I'd use it because, again, I tend to be kind of lazy. But at the same time, I was like, well, under the guise of saving money, I was like, sure, I'll try and brew some beer. And it's just, I found out if you could boil water, I mean, you can make beer. Like, if you just have a little bit of time and you have a little bit of patience and follow some instructions. And even then, you don't have to even follow those instructions. You can kind of go your own way and try stuff out. And I've been doing it for about 5 years. And the one we're making today, the red, is what I pretty much go to every couple of brewings. And, again, you get 5 gallons of beer at a time, so that's kind of fun. All right, so it's been about a half an hour, a little bit longer, and get the grains out of here now. Again, it's just warm. It hasn't been boiling at all. We're gonna pull the grains out, transfer it over to the bucket over here, and again, you'll notice at this point, like, the color's really deep. Like, it looks really good. It looks a lot more like beer at this point. And once we get this out, we'll get it back up to a boil, and then we'll talk about adding the malt.
My name's Kevin. I've been brewing beer now for about 3 years. I actually got into it because of Travis. Actually, I was living with Travis, and I came home, and he had bought me a brew kit for $25 at a tag sale.
Greatest
gift in the world. Awesome. So for the past 3 years, I've been brewing with him. I started brewing with Mitch, and been brewing by myself. It's been pretty good. Having a good time with it. It's easy. And anyone can really do it. And if you like beer, as all 3 of us do, it's a great thing to do at your house on a weekend, after work, whatever time you have.
It's a good hobby.
You gotta squeeze it in. You can always squeeze it in.
Always can squeeze this
and
in.
It looks just enough like work that if you have a significant other, they'll let you do it.
It is the greatest scam ever. I mean, to speak to that right there, somehow, all of us, we get away with it. Like,
and they usually help out.
Yeah.
Like, they'll hold the grain bag or be like, oh, what you doing? It smells good in here.
Yeah. It's like cooking. It's like we're cooking.
Yeah, it is. And that's one of the things, beer and food. Can't go wrong.
All right. So we got the water back up to a boil, shutting off the heat. And this is the most important part. We got to add the malt. And that's what really makes the beer here. We're going to get the cover off first. There we go. It's very hot at this point. Use a little caution. We're going to get the last seeping out of the grains here. So I'm going to get that. And if Kevin will add that to the batch, here we'll squeeze whatever's left out of this. There we go.
Look at how he squeezes that sack of grains.
It's a little warm. It's a little warm.
Little hot. Not gonna lie.
You were warning.
That's why I'm holding it with
those grains
the
are
oven
hot.
mitt. I think we're good here.
Okay.
Good. So Kevin, add that in there. I'm gonna get rid of this.
That goes in the compost, right?
Sure.
Yes, because we're environmentally friendly here.
So we just add the rest of that.
That's good. We'll get rid of that right away. All right, so now we just got to get that malt in there. Got the spoon. This is key. Have a very good sturdy spoon. It's going to get a little thick.
The plastic ones, while they'll sell you at the brew store.
True. They will snap.
Buy the plastic
They will snap and bend. So Kevin's just going to start pouring this slowly, because you can't do it all at once, because you got to start stirring immediately. You got the color right there.
And this is the malt extract that we're actually dumping into this right now.
Nothing being genius about the stirring, just make sure you keep the water moving and make sure you mix it up well.
Continue to keep stirring as this is going on, because obviously you don't want this to stick to the bottom. You want it to all dissolve in the pot.
And again, it's starting to add volume to this as well, so that's why you don't want to start with a full pot of water, because if you do, you'll have nowhere to put the malt. Besides that, just enjoy the show. At this point, you want to be able to watch it, because it will start to foam. And so what you're going to do is you're going to get this so it's a rolling boil. There you go. That's what you're looking at there. The malt's in there. Nice red color. Looking like a Killian's. It's going to taste pretty much the same. But it's going to foam, so you're going to want to watch it now. And maybe you have to move it off the heat, back onto the heat as it does foam, because you don't want it to over, obviously, and get all over your stove and you just make a huge mess. It does happen, and it's a lot of fun to clean up. There we go. We got the heat back on, and we'll just be watching this intermittently for probably another 20 to 30 minutes.
All right, my name's Mitch, and I've been brewing now for a number of years. I grew up being a little kid, smelling that smell of grains and all that kind of stuff on the stovetop. My dad brewed beer and still does to this day. So I got my start helping out. I was the head sanitation engineer when I was a young kid, and into my 20s, still would help him. And by help him, I mean I would clean things, because that's all he would let me do. When we talk about brewing, we talk about the different styles that people go through. I tend to approach it from a very scientific standpoint. I'm about accuracy. I'm about the numbers, and because that's just my personality, and that's kind of what brewing is like. It's you take it on and you do it the way you feel comfortable. I've been brewing now at my house on my own for the past year or so. And have built my own brewery, finally going out on my own, getting tired of being told how to do it or doing it someone else's way. And, I'm one of those people that I've got, probably 4 or 5 recipes that I'm brewing consistently every single time, the same way, accurate, detailed notes, steeping grains at, different temperatures and paying attention to the times and all that kind of stuff, because for me, that's where I find I want to make it exactly the same every single time. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be like that. And that's what's going to be so great about this show, is you're going to see 3 different people with 3 totally different styles, brewing 3 different ways. We're sitting here in Travis's kitchen right now, and grains are steeping behind us. Next episode, we'll be in my garage, staring at a turkey fryer. I mean, everybody does it. Everybody does it in a different way. We'll have my wife's boxes of crap that she's saving onto, and us brewing beer, because you do it where you can, you squeeze it in where you can, and you make it happen. And that's really what it's about. So, here we are, drinking beer,
that's it.
Brewing beer, and making television about it now. I think at this point, it's
can't go wrong.
Yeah, there's no wrong way to do it. There's no judging. Someone can do it completely different.
And who's going to judge when you pull out your own beer that you made?
There you go.
No one.
From bottling to kegging to kitchens to garages. Here we go, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers. Brew Bandits.
Excellent. All right, so we got it going on a rolling boil. At this point, the foaming has stopped. Did pretty good. Didn't really foam that much. Sometimes you put the cover on it. You got to make sure to check it a lot, or else you could have the foam come out and you're not paying attention, which is easy to do when you're drinking and home brewing at the same time. And now we just have to add the hops. There's usually a hopping schedule, meaning like how long each ounce of hops that usually you have that you buy it in the ounce, and how long each part is supposed to go in for. The first part, there's 2 hops in this one. I have the little pearl pellets here, and we put the whole ounce of that in to start with. It says 60 minutes on to let it go for. Again, if you're a little off, doesn't matter, it'll be all right. But you want to give it a little bit of time. And again, if you don't, it's a wonderful smell. All the hops smell a little different, and they're just fantastic. And in fact, a little more on the hops. We actually had Mitch harvesting hops at his house because he grows it in his backyard.
We're here in the backyard, and this is what we're talking about when we're talking about hops. We're talking about the ingredients that it takes to make beer. And part of that is hops, and it's a very important ingredient. And it's actually with the natural preservative that's in beer that helps it last longer. Quick story, the style IPA, the India Pale Ale style, for those of you that aren't familiar, was developed because they realized the more hops they put into the beer, the more it preserved the beer, so the beer could make it from England down into the Indies. and that's why it's called the India Pale Ale, because when they got there, it would still survive because the hops preserved it. But these are hops hanging on the cone here, and I've got mine. As you can see, they're ready for picking. They're layered up through here. It's, you know, different vines, and the cones are hanging in through here. Basically, these hops right here are the Hellertau variety, the Hellertau traditional, and this is it right here. It's a little green nugget, I guess. It's a little green bud. It's the flower of the hop vine, and the vine grows along here, and it produces all this. And basically, what we're after is this stuff inside. Can we take a look at that right in there? That white, that flaky yellow right in there. You smell it? That's it right there. Smell this, and this is the smell of beer, and you know it. So what we're doing here today is actually we brought the crew down here to film the picking. As you can see over my left, I got my little dudes lined up doing their thing, which is picking hops right now. We got to go through, and since we're not a commercial hop farm, we got to pick hops like nobody's business. Some other fun hop facts. There's tons of varieties, and they make up a lot of the flavor. There's different kinds of hops. There's bittering hops and there's finishing hops. And it's really about where you add them. We'll say on a beer like Dogfish 60, you know, they're hopping that thing for 60 straight minutes of that, you know, boil. That's it. They continually are hopping it. And that's part of what gives it the flavor. You know, the more of these little bad boys you throw in, the more bite, the more bitterness, the more aroma. You know, they all carry different flavor notes. You know, something like a Southern Tier 2X IPA, it's almost got like a sweet grapefruit aroma to it. It's because of the hops. It's because of how they're added. It's because of the styles they use.
All right, so we've got about 40 minutes.
Yep.
On the last pellets, and then we're on to the Pearl pellets. It's the type of hops, and then Liberty. Liberty is actually a hops that's grown in Vermont and packaged in Vermont. And we might do a segment on them someday. Anyway, we have to add the next half of the hop pellets here, the half an ounce, and then we'll wait another 20 minutes, and we'll add the last half ounce to the batch, which just kind of gives it that like finishing, that last little bit of hops, the aroma, and a little bit of that light hoppiness that's going to go with the Irish Red. It's not as strong as like an IPA or something like that, but you'll get a little more of the finishing on it for it. So we're going to put a little bit in here. Yeah, and do the other half.
And this last half of the bag will go in, again, the last 10 minutes of the boil for the aroma.
And again, we just wait. Again, once again, if you
20 minutes goes by, we'll be adding this.
If you can boil water, you can make beer. It's really that simple. All right. So it's been 20 minutes. We got the last half ounce of pellets to go in. Drop those right in there. And again, just wait. You got to go about 5 minutes, and once the 5 minutes are done, we'll finalize the batch, which is pretty much just getting it into the fermentation unit, which is just a bucket with a cover. So I'll show you that in a bit. All right. So the last 5 minutes is up, and all we got left is just the brew, and we got to get it into the bucket because this is where it's going to sit for a while. And before we bottle it and taste it, it's going to take about at least 2 weeks. It may depend on the type of beer.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
That we have, but sometimes a winter beer, or like a Shock Top or a Blue Moon, will take a longer time before you have to, because it takes a longer time to carbonate. But it sits in here basically. First fermentation. If this is all you do, that's fine. You can then put it into a bottling bucket, bottle it, and be done. But you may need to move it to a secondary fermenter, which is a glass bottle or carboy, which is what they're called. Again, this is good. I mean, this is just a standard brew kit top. The beer goes in there. We've already got 3 gallons of water in, so you want to put 3 gallons of water in, so you're using about 2 gallons of water in here. Once it's in here, we secure the top and put a little water lock on top. You can either take the lock off, fill it with a little bit of water, snap the top back on, or you just take the top off, take like a glass of water. So what we're going to do, and just fill it up to there's a line. It's because the yeast that we're going to add into this is going to make the alcohol, yay, and turn it into the home brew that we like.
Correct.
And here we go. So Kevin's got the bucket. I'm going to get that pouring done. Sometimes, I mean, other people, I guess this is just from the hip. I know how to make this beer. Sometimes people like to take like a reading or a gravity.
Correct. Or after once they cool this, they'll sometimes cool this with a wort chiller. Because pretty much what was in here was the wort. We're now putting it into the fermentation bucket. Important thing to do when you're adding this to the fermentation bucket is you do not want to fill this to the top, because what's going to happen is the process is it's going to, as it's creating and fermenting, it's going to raft up, and you don't want it to raft up and I've seen this pop out before. So you want to keep it
right.
Just a 5 gallons. This is a 6-gallon bucket.
It is a 5-gallon bucket to be. It's 5 gallons of beer. 6 gallons can go in there, but you want to never fill it up to the 6 gallons. You might be tempted to make a little extra beer, but it's not worth it if this flies off the top and it ruins all your beer.
Correct.
So the next thing we're going to need to do is we have to put the yeast in. It comes down to personal preference on yeast. Some yeast do better in a cold environment. The yeast we have, the Nottingham yeast here, I use all the time because of my basement. I know that it's a little cooler all times of the year, and I need something that's going to activate and eat all the nice sugars and everything in there and make a good beer. So this is usually what I go to. And usually we have a long-handled spoon right here. Kevin, you want to stir that in when I'm dumping it in? Just give it a couple of light stirs, nothing too...
You want to kind of aerate this as you're putting in the yeast. You already want to have your...
Just sprinkle it on top. Just putting that right in there. And just trying to get the yeast a little bit worked in. Nothing too much. You're not trying to like drown it or so forth. And that's it, right there. A couple of quick stirs. And now, I'm just going to get that off on. Kevin, you want to get the top going?
Sure. And then you just snap this right onto the top. You can hear it.
It does take some effort. There we go.
This is the airlock.
I'm using a line halfway up. And that's it. Put the top on, and now as the yeast starts working, this will start to bubble. That's normal. You may even get some bubbles that come out of the top here. That's fine. If it starts shooting out the sides, or if it starts making this go really concave, you might want to decide to maybe release some pressure. But it's okay if it hasn't burst. It hasn't broken the seal, you're pretty much okay to go. Even if some of the beer gets forced up into this, it's okay as long as it's not coming out the sides. And now this is going to sit about 2 weeks.
Yes, it's anywhere between 7 to 14 days on your first fermentation process. So it's...
Right, and that's before bottling at least. It's not till you drink it. But we're
going to do the fermentation, and possibly what we'll do is Travis will also do a secondary fermentation, which allows the sediment to settle out so you get more of a clear beer when you pour it into a nice
but again, it's all
pint
preference.
glass.
Yeah,
correct.
It's
you
all
don't
preference.
have to do that, but...
and then in about 2 weeks, we'll bottle.
Correct.
And then we'll be able to try it out. All right, it's been 2 weeks. Now the beer's been sitting in there. The yeast has been doing its job and turning it into alcohol. But now we got to bottle it. And so what I've done is I've already gone ahead and moved it from the bucket you saw we put it into. I've removed the wort, is what it's called, into... It's turning into beer now, and we moved it into the bottling bucket here. Just to put it over into... put it into bottles. I've already bottled a bunch of it. And what we have, just some standard bottling stuff. Regular bottles you can buy. You can come into these a lot on Craigslist. You can look for free bottles. You can also, as I got here, this was definitely somebody else's bottle, from a nice vintage from Anheuser. And as long as it's not a twist off, you can rebottle these. So it's incentive to keep those around. Have a big party, and then you can refill the beer bottles. Different sizes, different types. Again, just regular capping bottles. Then you've also got the Grolsch bottles, which can be a little cooler. They fit a lot more. They go anywhere from 16 to 24 ounces. To open them up, they're kind of cool. It's a nice little party gimmick. Everyone kind of likes the Grolsch bottles. They're a little more expensive, so I have a few of those, but mostly just the regular beer bottles. And you have to change the little seal thing, little round rubber seals that we have on for the Grolsch bottles. Try not to break them, obviously. We didn't do a secondary fermentation. We had mentioned that we might do it, but when we strained it, because we put it through, these are priceless, little strainer inside of a funnel. Get them all the homebrew stores. It strains the beer as it goes into, fits on a little lip right here. You can strain it right in. If it looks pretty good, go for it. But it looked clear enough. I wanted to bottle it. I didn't want to go ahead and let it sit for another week or so and let more stuff settle out. You can. Again, all on preference. If you don't mind a little sediment, it's not going to hurt you. It's actually kind of fun to have that as part of your homebrew. It makes it look like a homebrew. With the bottles, again, the caps are fairly cheap. And they just usually say generic things like Brewer's Best and other things on the labels. We're going to go ahead and just fill a couple of bottles. And then after that, we'll give it a little while. And then the whole Brew Bandits, Kevin, Mitch, and myself, will go ahead and taste test it. For the bottling, they didn't want to be here, but that's fine. That's fine. I prefer bottling, by the way, because you can take it and be like, hey, I just want a beer and give it out or so forth. Kegging is what some of the other guys do. Mitch prefers to keg it. When you tap the keg, it does have a lifespan at that point. You can store it a lot longer. You can force carbonate it. There's some benefits to it. I'll let Mitch talk all about that. The bottling I like because you can show up with a 6-pack. You can show up with a 12-pack. You don't have to bring your entire 5 gallons and have it, go to one party, and you can enjoy it as you go. So we'll just get right down to it. Sanitize your bottles, wash them beforehand, wash the bucket, good to be clean. You want to make sure there's no residue left from other brewings. Some people use hosing and so forth. I literally just have it in the bottom of the bucket. There's a little spout on it. Put it right up inside there. Some people like to put it down, and Kevin can attest that it's kind of pretty to watch it go into the bottle. But usually if you do it like this, it's going to go all over the floor, which is also what he's done before. And you just... Sometimes these things stick if you don't really clean them well. There we go. You gotta watch it. Give it about an inch. Give it some room to breathe, and then you've got a bottle of beer. You're gonna slap the top on. These things are really a lot of fun. It's the bottle capper. And you just got a little magnet that holds it in place. And you just force down till you feel it give. And there. You got another bottle of beer. It's all on there tightly. And that's it. That's bottling your beer. So this is the finished product.
This is the Irish
Red.
Irish Red, or
the clone
of the
clone. That's correct.
And as with any homebrew of bottled nature, we got just a little bit of, because of the bottle conditioning, you'll just be a little yeast sediment in the bottom. It's full of vitamin B, which is actually great for curing hangovers. So you can choose to just pour the whole thing into your glass, or you can hold it back depending on what you feel you need to do. I personally don't mind a little vitamin B. And as you can see the color here, you get a nice dark red color. But then, as there's less volume, you can see it kind of clears out here. There's more volume beer, obviously, higher in this glass than lower in this glass. But that's what you want. You want that deep red.
Amber color.
That deep amber color sitting up there. And it thins out. It's clean. It's light. So you see the head. We got a nice little head. It's carbonated well, which is always good. You don't sometimes.
Don't want flat beer.
Right. And in the bottling process, sometimes if you don't put it on just right, you'll get a flat bottle. And that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes that happens. But most often than not, it's going to come out pretty good.
You do taste almost like a toasted malt type thing.
Yep.
Very true to the style. I would say very true to the style would be my impression of this beer. You think of an Irish Red, it's that mellow. It's not real hoppy. There's a nice malty sweetness to it, but there's that roasty characteristic that Kevin was talking about.
Like you said, it's not bitter. There's no bitterness to this beer. Like some other beers, as IPAs would be more like.
really taste the hops.
Right.
Really.
Right. This isn't like that.
Nope. A little smoother.
Nice, what we'd like to call a session beer. Sit back, have a couple, hang out, relax.
You can see here there's nice lace. You know, it's lacing the glass nicely as it, you know, the carbonation was nice. The tiny white bubbles, that's what you look for, especially in this style. You know, it's not a big frothy foamy head. It's not, you know, you don't want it to hang out on top there. You want it to kind of settle down, and you just want a gentle ring sitting around it. And this ring should last the entire beer. You'll see it as you drink it down. It's just going to sit there right around the edge. That's very, very common for this style. It means you did it right this time.
Yeah.
Good job.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.